Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the webinar, and welcome Linda for this webinar. Everybody, please join me in welcoming Linda. She comes from Dubai, Linda Berlot. She's an entrepreneur, executive, and certified team coach. She is an ORSCC, so for the unversed, it's Organization and Relationship System Certified Coach. She's the founder and CEO of Berlot Group Dubai. She's also the faculty and leader development director of CRR Global. CRR Global is the organization which creates the ORSC coach training program. Linda coaches teams of multicultural leaders in the field of change management and team dynamics. In the past 16 years, her focus has been to bring her experience of relationship and team dynamics to executive leadership teams and thus enabling them to work at their full potential as a team. So welcome, Linda, and thanks for doing this for us. And today, Linda is going to share with us her insights on coaching teams for success. Over to you, Linda, completely. And before I give it to you, just again an announcement, like all other webinars, this webinar is entitled for CCU. So I shall be posting a link at the end of the webinar. Kindly submit the form for you to be able to get your CCUs, which we will give at the end of this year. Over to you, Linda. Welcome and thank you so much.
Fantastic, Ash. Thank you so much for inviting me here. I'm absolutely thrilled to spend the next hour with you and to see the turnout. I'm super curious to know where everybody is from. So I wonder if you could just type in the chat where you're from. So I'm Italian, but I'm living in Dubai. So show me where you are from. Oh, feel free to say too. So we have Mumbai. I thought I saw Vilnius too. Lagos, Bangalore, Pune. Argentinian living in Los Angeles. Wow, Mountain View, California. Bangalore. Beautiful. Wow, we really are spanning the entire globe today. That's exciting. Yokohama. Mumbai. That's wonderful. Thank you. And as more and more of you join the webinar, I am thrilled this evening to be here with you and to be talking to you about a topic which is so close to my heart, and that is team coaching. Team coaching for me has changed the way that we work and has definitely added another arrow in my quiver. And I am eager to share with you what it's all about and how it can really shift working with teams, whether you are a leader of a team or if you are a coach coaching the team. So the skills that I'm going to share with you this evening is truly whether you're a coach or a leader. In fact, we run courses for both of those. And we believe that as a leader, being more coach-like is a great leadership skill to have, because you will then be able to bring up your people with you. So I have a presentation. I'm going to be switching it on and off. I don't want to be attached to the slides. I would rather that this was a conversation between us and that you participated. I would love for you to keep your videos on if you could, leave your mics open if you can, if that's at all possible, so that we can interact. Don't leave me hanging here on my own. Please feel free to ask questions and speak, and let's deliver this together. So I'm going to share the presentation just to start off with. Can you see that? Oops. Perfect. Thank you for letting me know that. So I have been living and working in the UAE for the last 18 years. On April the 4th was my 18th year anniversary. I hold different hats. I'm the founder and CEO of Berlot Group. We're a team coaching organization, but I also sit on the faculty of CRR Global. This is the company in the US that started the model of team coaching that I use. And I am the Global Faculty and Leader Development Director, which means that I'm responsible for the development of all the international trainers that deliver the courses. At Berlot Group, we do two things. We coach our clients, and these are usually C-suite leadership teams across industries and right across the region and beyond. And we run a school, which is an ICF accredited school, to teach people to be team coaches such as ourselves. Our clients are diverse. Those are just some of the clients that we provide value to. We have deep, connected relationships with our clients that span many, many years. And some of the topics that we get called to coach on are usually those issues that pop up in the team dynamics, in the dynamics between the people, the interconnectedness. So when we have multicultural teams, very often there are lots of misunderstandings that pop up, sometimes conflict, communication issues, misalignment, sometimes silos, low positivity, low trust. These are some of the topics or issues that plague teams that we get asked to work with. Are there any other issues that you know of that teams face that you either as a leader have to work with or as a coach have been called in to work with? Put them in the chat or share them with us. Okay. Seems like
Maybe it's
I've covered.
related to these, but I think just lack of a shared purpose.
Yes.
I guess that's
Yeah.
misalignment.
Misalignment, lack of shared purpose. That's great. Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else have any others? Like some of the things that plague teams.
People not taking ownership for the jobs.
That's right. So lack of accountability.
Yes.
Yeah. That's true. So all of these topics that we have just mentioned, all of them are indicators that the team could use team coaching as one of the possible solutions. And so that's why we get called in. Where am I? Before we move too deep into what when we talk about team coaching, the difference for us between a team or a system, you'll hear me using three words interchangeably: team, relationship, and system. And I mean the same thing. Teams come together to produce, so there are interdependencies. In other words, they are a connected system. There is a relationship between us the moment we make eye contact and we come together. And amongst teams, it's a working relationship. So they are a team, they're a working relationship, and they are a system because there are interconnectivities. So for us, the difference between a team or a system and a group is the following: is that a team is a group of interdependent entities with a common focus or a goal. And that's important to remember because you will work with a team and a group very, very differently. So when we work with let's say we get called in by a leader, the first question we ask is who's in the team, so that we make sure that everybody is included. Now, let's talk about this a little bit. A group of people going to the cinema, are they a group or a system? They have a common focus, but are they a group or a system?
They're just a group.
They're just a group. Yeah, exactly. We don't need each other to watch the movie. If everybody behaves and there's silence, we can all watch together. But that's why it's so hard to ask the person sitting next to us eating crisps with a crunchy packet to keep quiet, because it's hard to hold people accountable in a group. In a system, however, where we need each other to work, it's easier then to build accountability in the team, because if you don't do your piece of work or I don't do my piece of work, my teammate can hold me accountable, right? Or it's easier to hold me accountable. Can you see that? No?
No, we can't see your screen, Linda.
Okay, I'll share it again. Now, can you see that?
It takes some time. Yes,
Yeah,
now
it
we can
is.
see.
Okay. Someone give me a thumbs up if you can see it. Perfect. So what's interesting to see is that poorly performing teams can become good teams. However, good teams, can become effective, right? They come together, they work out their inefficiencies, and they can become effective. Good teams that receive team coaching can become great. Now, everybody says, why should we coach when we're already great? And think about in the sporting world, all of those very, very successful sportsmen all have a coach standing next to them. And it's because the coach is somebody who is impartial, sees you from the outside, and can help you figure out the way to reach your goals, but is able to reflect back your blind spots to you. And it's exactly the same with team coaching. When we stand and we work with a team, we can reflect back to them what their blind spots are, so that they may work on their own blind spots, if you will, and then become great. So how many of you have experience in team coaching, or have heard of team coaching, or have used team coaching before? Fantastic. That's amazing. Okay. So who can tell me what team coaching is? Please forgive me. I have someone at the door. Please forgive me.
Sure.
Sorry about that. Go ahead. Who can tell me what team coaching? That's the beauty of standing up and presenting from home. We're in each other's living rooms. Okay.
One way I would describe it is, one way to do it, for example, is you go find a team in their environment, the system in which they work, and either observe them, participate with them, bring them together, and help them think through and identify what they do well, what they might do less well, and then help them think through and discuss what isn't working as well and what might be some of the underlying reasons for it, and help them discover, say, rituals or behaviors which they could adopt going forward to address those.
Absolutely. Somebody else want to add to that? Thank you, Vivek.
My experience has been working with a functional group of people who are interconnected within a process. For example, let's say it's function, and and working with them, finding out common issues that may arise, which only the function can understand and not everyone else. So that's my experience.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Somebody else have experience of team coaching? Okay, so team coaching is a process, just like executive coaching or one-to-one coaching, right? The only difference is that instead of working with the individuals in the group, we focus on the system as a whole. So it's a process where we use tools and skills to take a team from where they are to where they want to get to. They set their own goals, and we just help them get there. We do that by asking powerful questions, by being a mirror, by working with the emotional field, revealing what we see. And by doing that, we give them more information about themselves. We also ask really powerful questions so that they can think and process their own issues in a different way. We also stimulate for them to have conversations at a deeper level that they may not have had before, right? So that's what we consider team coaching. Does that resonate with anyone? Now, I use a particular model of team coaching, and the team coaching model that I use, and it's not the only model, is called ORSC. It was the first model of team coaching accredited by the ICF. Now, of course, there are many, many others. And I would never say that one model is better than the other. I would say it's always great to have a toolbox. And when you meet your client, you've got different tools in your toolbox. Think about, you wouldn't use a hammer to fix everything around the house, would you? So it's important to have tools in your toolbox that you can use. But this model is called ORSC, Organization and Relationship Systems Coaching. And it was created by CRR Global and two amazing women, Marita Frijon and Faith Fuller. And some of you may know them or may have heard of them. It is accredited by the ICF, but what it focuses on is coaching the system as one. So instead of the individuals being my client, the team becomes my client. That entity becomes my client. And what's unusual about this methodology is that we we introduce and build different types of intelligences in the system, emotional intelligence, social intelligence, but more importantly, relationship systems intelligence, which is really the ability that we have to see that we are both an individual and part of a greater system. Now, couples understand that. Couples know that there's me over here, I have needs. There's you over there, you have needs. But over and above me and you, there is a relationship, a we. And that relationship needs to be nurtured. And if it doesn't, then it will not survive. Now we take that same thinking into teams, and we say that everything we do or don't do as team members impacts the team. And sometimes team members are not aware of that. So we coach the system without pointing out to any one of the individuals. We don't make anybody wrong. We look at all behavior as belonging to the system. So we work with it systemically. Now, how does that sound to you? Ask me questions.
It was a very interesting parallel between the family and the team. That was a very nice thing you brought out.
Yeah.
It gives me a deep insight.
Yeah. Well, here's why, is that whether we are at home or, in a personal relationship or in a relationship at work, they are still relationship skills that we are learning. There are interconnectedness. Of course, the relationships are different. One is personal. I make myself more vulnerable. The other one is at work. Maybe I'm not so vulnerable. However, I'm still a human. You're still a human. We come together, and when we work, the dynamic between us is going to either ensure that we succeed or fail. So the relationship between us needs nurturing, whether it's at home or at work. Does that make sense?
Yeah, very much.
So why do we need to think about coaching teams at all at this moment? Or the other side is also true. Why do leaders need to think about becoming more coach-like? Well, we know that in today's world, change is accelerating, right? We are moving faster and faster through change. We just have to look at all the change that's happened in the last 2 years and 5 years and 10 years and 50 years. It's accelerating. All of a sudden, team members are no longer situated centrally. So before, everybody sat in the head office, we could walk up and down the stairs and meet each other. Now that may not be the case. People are working remotely, sometimes in the same city, but sometimes across real regions. Connectivity on our phones is making that communication is faster than ever, right? When you send a WhatsApp to a work colleague, you expect that it's answered. Doesn't really matter what time it is, but you expect that it's answered. So communication is also happening very fast. It is no longer possible for a leader to lead from the front and lead the change. It's no longer possible for the leader to keep abreast of all that is happening, all the changes, or be the expert. So if that is true, then what needs to change? Something has to change. How do we then lead teams? How do we then make sure that teams are successful? Any thoughts?
I think everybody behaves like a leader, all the team members, so that situationally each one becomes a leader at various points of time.
I love that. So the leadership role belongs to the team, not the hierarchical leadership role. That belongs to the team leader. But all of us can step into our leadership at any one moment in time, right? So if we're all on a meeting and somebody notices that there's a disturbance, it doesn't need the leader to say, wow, let's get curious about what the disturbance is. Anybody can say that, correct? Anybody can pick that up and make a suggestion. That's what we mean by the leadership role belongs to the team.
Actually, that is when you can call it a team itself.
Yes.
When that sort of behavior happens.
Yes. That kind of behaviors when there's a high degree of trust and safety in the team, right? Yeah. When teams shift the focus away from the me to the we, now we start looking at what is good for the team. We start to leverage different types of intelligence. I move away from my own experience, emotional intelligence, and I start to focus on you. And when I start to focus on you, I build my social intelligence, and hopefully I build my empathy that goes with it. At the moment, empathy is extremely important. If COVID taught us anything, is that we're not robots. You know, there was a lot of need for care and empathy. We couldn't just do business as we did before. We had to take a moment to care about each other. If we shift the focus from processes and tools, which are of course important, to also look at dynamics between the individuals, now we start to have collaborative environments where people feel free to speak up and share their ideas. So the team goes, instead of being one person smart when the leader has all the answers, to being a whole system smart, right? So by coaching the system as a whole, we increase the intelligence in the system, right? Because the team becomes creative and generative, and therefore more intelligent. It becomes smarter. How's that landing?
Yeah, am I audible?
You're audible and visible.
All right, thank you. So yes, I think that sounds excellent because, and I was immediately reminded of this quote that we use very often here in India, which is that 1 + 1 is not 2, it is 11.
Yes, yes, beautiful.
So that's the power of the system working together. Absolutely.
Right, right. I love what you're saying. I want to use an analogy. Imagine we were all in a very big room, right? We were all together, no COVID. Here we were, and one of you had a string around their waist, and the rest of us also had string around our waist, and we attached all of our string to the first person's waist, right? In essence, let's assume that person is the leader. When that leader moves around, we follow. When they stop, we stop. So what would be the advantages of that more traditional style of leadership?
That kind of a leadership is necessary, especially in situations which are crunch. Like, for example, the building is on fire. So it's important somebody takes the lead role.
Exactly.
Not in a situation where everybody is required to contribute.
So the advantage of that leadership style is, in a crunch, one person just needs to make the call and everybody follows. Yeah? Fantastic. What else is the advantage? There's collaboration, standard processes and procedures. Exactly. We don't really have to think. Our leader has the answers. We just have to follow, right? And of course, execute, but we just have to follow. So we're all moving in the same direction also. There's no space for anybody to move away. Great. We're working as a team. What are the disadvantages?
I think that can be applied only where processes are routine or well set, where things are well established, not in creative areas, or we are looking for a new evolution or something new flowering. It cannot apply there, where a lot of team intelligence is required.
Correct. Why is there no creativity?
There doesn't need to be any creativity in that model.
There's no need to be creative. We are one person smart. One person has got all the answers and the direction and everything. Lack of innovation, less creative, doesn't grow. Absolutely.
In India, we have one saying that nothing grows under a banyan tree. We have a very big tree. So if everybody is trying to grow, that growth doesn't really happen.
Exactly. Okay. So we're all agreeing that there's no out-of-the-box thinking. There's no real creativity. That team, in essence, would be one person smart, right? One person smart. Now let's pause on that style of leadership, and let's think about another style of leadership. Imagine that all of us were in a room together. All of us had a piece of string, and the leader stood somewhere at the back and said, "Guys, with your piece of string, I want you all to create like a spider's web," right? So they give direction, clear direction, and the purpose of the spider's web is to catch something. Now we have a goal. And then they stand back and they just observe what happens, or sometimes encourages. You can do it. I know you can. What will happen in the room?
I think there'll be a burst of
Initiative,
activity
creativity.
first and foremost.
Yeah.
And then
And everybody would put their heads together to figure this out. And now we have got that many brain cells going all jumping up and down to figure a way out. So creativity
Exactly.
unfolds.
Exactly. So all of a sudden, lots of creativity, lots of engagement, and eventually the web may not happen the way I, as the leader, thought it would, but the web would be created. And my job is to champion, give the direction, give the goal, champion. Right? So intelligence, then, however many people we are in the room, let's say 47, that system would be 47 people smart. Right? So we double the intelligence in the room. We because we're all thinking. Now, team coaching is something like that. Team coaching is, so the role of the team coach or the leader that is more coach-like is about, yes, sub-leaders will also emerge because the leadership role belongs to the system. Yeah. So the team coach's role is to do that, to tap into the creativity, collaboration, trust, and expand on all of those, right? So that the team feels a sense of achievement once they've achieved their goals. Yeah.
For this
In
to
fact,
happen,
Sorry.
yeah.
Sorry.
For this to happen, I think the first step in the process would be to train the leader.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So whenever I work with a team and we're about to do this process, I do spend time with the leader. I do spend time saying, look, how do we want to work together? Because, you know, you are a role in the team. You are the hierarchical leader. So how do you want me to give you feedback? How will you give feedback? How do you want the team? You know, how do you want communication to be? Is it direct? Is it indirect? Feedback, safety, all of these things we talk about so that that leader doesn't feel threatened when we move in. But we're not talking about the hierarchical, that remains unchanged. It's just the people start to take accountability and responsibility for things happening. Right.
Right. In fact, you know, I'm reminded of this Center for Creative Leadership. Of course, I think most of us would know. They have a definition of leadership, which is like a process. It is a process. And therefore, as a result of which, it moves the ownership and that heavy responsibility on a single individual to people in the team, in the room, in the organization. And I think that's a wonderful way of looking at leadership. And perhaps that kind of a message, if that can be given to the team, that it is a process, and anybody who's following that process is leading. And from that space, I don't know whether the team coaching that you're talking about has something to do with that.
Well, let's have a look at that. Let me share my screen again.
Another quote I really like is leadership is an act, not a role.
Leadership is an act and not a role.
Which is you become a leader by acting like a leader. It isn't who is appointed the leader who's leading the team. It's who's acting like a leader, and everybody on the team can play that act.
Absolutely. You know, Vivek, in my past life, in my corporate life, I used to work. So I've always been learning and development right back throughout my career, but also change management. And I led the change functions of organizations. And in that function, I had change agents throughout the departments, and they were not the hierarchical leader like the department head. They were the informal leaders that people liked and looked up to. And it could be anybody. It was not hierarchical. They were the influencers in that department. And we looked to them to share the message and also bring back messages to us so that we could work with that. So what we're all speaking to is a collective intelligence, right? Is that when we tap into the collective intelligence of a group, when people cooperate well, they ensure that intelligence expands past intellect and past the individual, right? So the group starts to become more intelligent, but also more effective as a system. Do we hear that? Let's break that down a little. So you all know emotional intelligence, right? Emotional intelligence is the ability that I have to understand how I'm feeling and to self-manage my behavior. Social intelligence is the ability that I have to see the impact I'm having on you, to be aware of you and accurately read your emotions and have the ability to feel empathy towards you, right? The you. There is a new intelligence which CRR Global has brought to the table and trademarked, and this is relationship systems intelligence. And this is truly the ability that we have almost to take a helicopter view, to be able to look down on the team and see yourself as an expression of the team. Let me use a metaphor to describe that, right? So imagine that we are all an interconnected team. It's almost like each one of us is a piece of a very beautiful puzzle, and each one of us is needed, right? So if I have relationship systems intelligence, I am aware that my puzzle piece is unique. I am me, but I am also part of a collective. And I am able to focus both on myself and on the collective. Now, some cultures are able to do this naturally. Some cultures are more relationship focused and others less so. When a team is able to do this, they become much more positive and productive. So, yeah, I think this is well-known data. I don't think that I'm sharing anything new here, right? Collective. So when we've researched collective intelligence, which comes from social sensitivity, this is really truly the ability that a group has to perceive each other's emotions and show empathy. And we know that when one person dominates a conversation, the group is less collectively intelligent than those where the conversation is shared, right? It's also a well-known fact that teams containing more women demonstrates greater social sensitivity and in turn, greater collective intelligence. Anybody want to argue that fact? We all agree?
We agree.
It's the ladies in the group who are saying we agree.
We dare not disagree.
I'm happy to hear that. So what this means is having a bunch of smart people in the group does not necessarily make the group smart, right? If we don't have empathy, if we don't listen to each other, we are not a smart group. So how do we work with the team? How does a systems coach or a systemic leader, for that matter, work with the team? Well, first of all, we listen to all voices. We call this really believing in in something we call deep democracy. And deep democracy has got nothing to do with voting or politics or anything like that, and everything to do with the belief that everybody has the right to speak and be heard. I may not agree with what you say, I may not like what you say, but you still have the right for me to hear you and be heard, right? So a team coach acts almost like a conductor in an orchestra, right? Sometimes I have to lower the big trombone to make space for the tiny cymbal in the corner, because only when we hear all of the instruments do we hear beautiful music, right? We are constantly, as team coaches, acting as a mirror, because when we reveal the system to itself, we give the system or the team more information about itself. The system sees itself differently because we've shown them that information, and therefore they're able to make different decisions or take different actions. You guys have been mentioning this all along. Leadership is a role that belongs to the system. We can be a hierarchical leader, or we can have that internal role of leadership, which belongs to all of us. We also support a culture of positivity. There has been a lot of research that shows that positivity equals productivity. And what that means is the happier we feel working together, right? The safer we feel, the more trust, the more productive we will be. And that's kind of obvious, right? People leave people. They don't necessarily leave organizations. I might be working for a great organization, but my team and my boss are horrible, so I'll want to leave. And the opposite may also be true, right? I love my team, I love my boss, and the organization, It's okay, but I so love working with these people that then I stay. I feel fulfilled, right? So the more positive a culture in an organization is, or in a team, the more productive that team will be. And those teams that have we-centered cultures are more productive than those teams that are more I-centered, right? Teams come together to produce, but how do we produce? Do we all do it individually, or do we work together to together create and achieve our objectives? Let me pause there. Any questions so far?
I want to echo, so sorry, this is a more general question. I just want to echo one of the questions I saw come up in the chat, which is,
Yes.
what are the best methods you've used to show teams their true reflection?
Well, when I'm using, it depends which model I'm using, but when I'm truly coaching a team and I'm stepping into my ORSC skills, I might say to the team, I'll give you an example. This comes up very often. When we're coaching teams, we are, teams are vulnerable. They're talking about emotions. They're stepping into a space they may not be used to. And so what do people do when they're uncomfortable? One of the things they do is crack jokes, right? And so as a team coach, I'm not going to judge that, but I am going to reflect it. So jokes create lightness. Jokes alleviate the pressure, but jokes also prevent us from going deep into the conversation. So if I see that there are jokes being cracked, I might just say to the system, without pointing any fingers to anybody, I might say, wow, I notice in this team that when we're about to have a meaningful conversation, there is a joke that's shared. What's the impact of that? How do you want to be with that as a team? And the team might say, oh, no, we are okay with that. In which case I need to be okay with that too. Or the team might say, well, no, actually, it's quite distractive. I don't like it. So we say, okay, so how do you want to be with that? I don't have to have all the answers as the systemic coach. Yeah, so we call that skill, reveal the system to itself. There is another skill. I love that question, Sandeep. I don't have my glasses, so please forgive me if I'm not seeing or reading the questions correctly. One of the other skills is reading the emotional field and in between us. So imagine that we were seated around the table. The moment people come together, between us, there's an energy. We all have the ability to read that energy. When you walk into a meeting room and there's been a fight in that meeting room, you can feel it in the air, right? Or you go to dinner and the couple next to you, they're not speaking, but you can tell they're falling in love. You can feel it in the air, in the energy. So the ability to read that or feel the shifts and ask about it is also a way to reveal to the system what is in it. So I might be working with a team and they're all chatty and I ask a question and all of a sudden it feels like everybody's awkward. So I'll say, wow, something shifted. What happened right here? What's happening? And they'll be silent. I'll say, what's in the silence? And in that way, it gives them an opportunity to speak to it. So reading the emotional field is a great team coaching skill. The question here is about, is team coaching better than individual coaching? I would not say it's better. No, there is a different purpose for each. Generally, team coaching coaches the individual. Executive coaching, individual coaching coaches the individual. Team coaching coaches the system, the team as a whole. So we're talking about having the team members be in conversation with each other. Whereas individual coaching is really just for one person. How do I say your name? Sandhya? Sandhya?
Yeah, Sandhya is a rough pronunciation. That's right.
Okay, fantastic. Did I answer your question?
I think let's move on.
Thank you. Yeah.
I have a small query related to the subject that you talked a short while back about getting into a room and reflecting what you're picking up from the room. But before this room happens, is there some kind of a preparation that happens for people to Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
For people to be in their sort of element and to be themselves. Because,
Absolutely.
yeah, is there something as a part of the
Yeah.
process?
So, absolutely. I love that question from Adir. So team coaching is a process, right? It's only in the workshop that I am the coach. Before that, I zoom out and I take a team through a process. And it's about managing the change, because we're asking the team all of a sudden who may be in conflict with each other or maybe not aligned. Now we're asking them to be open and vulnerable. And that's a process. So I always start by meeting with the team, spending a considerable amount with them, maybe as individuals or as a team or both, assessing the team and assessing the issues in the team. I'm also asking them, what do they think are the goals? Where would they like to go, and what would they like to achieve? And then I align that with what perhaps my key stakeholder may have said to me. So by the time we've met, the first process when we meet, in the first step when we meet after the assessment process, I outline the roadmap. I give everybody an opportunity to share their thoughts, ask questions, share any concerns, and we have several interactions like that before we come together to the coaching. Yeah.
Sure. Because I'm also thinking of personalities at play, and generally all things boil down to personalities at play. And as a part of the prep, do you even do some kind of a personality assessment and people sign, some kind of an assessment which is validated and then as a prep?
Absolutely. So assessment is integral to the process, because unless I sit with the team and I assess the team, how do I know who they are? And how do I know what strengths they have that I can leverage? And what are the possible areas for development? And I do assessments in different ways, and much depends on what they want to achieve. So it could be a personality assessment, DISC, or the leadership circle, or team diagnostics, Pat Lencioni. I do many intercultural tools and assessments that I use, and I collate that into a report, which I then show the team, and we use that as a benchmark. This is where we are today. And then every team coaching journey is different. It could be a 2-day workshop, or it could be a 4, 6, 9 month journey, because we're asking people to change behavior. And so we take them, that takes time. So we take them on a journey over time. Right. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much.
So how is team coaching different from group coaching? That's really good. So team coaching focuses on the we, right? So if there are interdependencies, that would be a team or a system. And we focus on what's good for the we, what is good for us as the collective. When I have a group of people in a room, I can still coach them, but I will not coach the interdependencies. I will maybe give them a lot of work to do individually, or I may buddy them to support each other, but it's individual journey, even though you're learning as a group. Does that make sense?
So why should we do group coaching at all then? Then we can do only individual coaching and team coaching. No? What is the need for group coaching?
Yeah, Ganesh, sometimes I do group coaching. For example, let me backtrack a little. For me, usually when I'm coaching the team, it's usually the CEO and his, what we call -1, right? So his individual team. And generally that group is not more than 15 people at most, right? Sometimes teams, organizations may have a dysfunction in the whole department or across 2 departments, or maybe across an entire layer in the organization. So they are not interdependent, but they belong to the same organization, or maybe a project. And in that case, I would be working with the individuals in a group setting. Often I do, for example, mentoring. After the courses, I mentor groups. So we're all in one room, we're learning. I'm working with the group as one, but the individuals it's an individual journey for each of the participants. Does that make sense?
Yeah, what I'm understanding is that perhaps in a group, you don't repeat the same thing to every individual. You save on time that way, it's more effective. Although you're doing individual coaching, it's in a group. What applies to you can apply to me also. So we learn faster. But then I'm not looking at the interconnectedness or the task. I'm not taking it to another awareness level. Got it. Thank you.
Sure.
It saves a lot of
Right.
time. That's the productivity I see there.
Yeah.
Instead of doing 9 people individually, I do 9 people as a group.
Yes.
Fine.
And it just depends on what the need is, right? It just depends on what the need is. So
Exactly.
why do it? Each engagement will have a very specific focus and need.
Fine. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Linda, there's
So-
another question in the chat as to what should be the ideal team size. I know you mentioned 15 usually is the size, but there is a following question to that is how big is too big?
You can use, for example, our ORSC tools can be used with groups of up to 300 people. Of course, then you may not be focusing on the individual interconnectedness, but you can use the tools. We've used them. It means, though, that I can't do it alone. I've got assistants in the room. But generally, team coaching, your team, you can coach a team of 10 on your own, or 10 or 12. And then if you're going up to 20 or 30 people, which is generally not a team, it might be a department, you would co-coach with somebody, because then you can both hold the group as in its entirety. But the tools can be used at conferences or, and then you're aware that you're stepping more into a facilitation role rather than a team coaching role. Yeah. Okay. So let's see where we are. I want to leave some space for questions. Okay, I think we went back. So when we're coaching a system, or when a leader is more coach-like, teams start to evolve. So they start to grow, they start to flourish. Some of the outcomes that you can hope to achieve when you are taking a team coaching approach is all of a sudden, team members are not afraid to enter into conflict. And we don't mean conflict as in negative, fighting, toxic, rude, disrespectful. We mean passionate, unfiltered discussions around topics, even if they are slightly uncomfortable. If there's high level of trust, high level of safety, teams will enter into this conflict without fear. They can very freely say, you know what, that was me, I messed up, I'm really sorry. Or we can learn from our mistakes or ask for help. Positive teams, which are more productive, focus on, okay, so that was the learning, that was the mistake. How do we learn from that and create something different? So how do we constantly look at what's emerging and what's possible? They focus on creating positivity. Now there's a magic formula, which is 5 to 1. So 5 acts of positivity to 1 act that takes away positivity. So it's almost like, well, actually, this is true for relationships too, personal relationships. It's important to consciously and intentionally, it's almost like putting deposits in the bank account, right? Consciously and intentionally doing acts that create positivity so that when that one withdrawal happens, it doesn't have much impact. Teams that are more positive also have the ability to be more resilient in the face of change. And they also can hear each other in times of conflict. So instead of being so rooted in I am right and therefore you are wrong, they have an opinion, and they're also able to say, oh, wow, okay, so I think what I'm hearing you say is
Wow.
X, Y, Z. And here's what I love about what you're saying, even though I disagree, right? And then we all were very clear about this from the beginning of this call, is that the leadership role belongs to the system, the internal leadership role. When a team is we-centered, now they can start to be more creative and start to resolve the issues that work between them. Some of these are what we've noticed. I wanted to share some data here that you can find for yourself, but I thought that it's interesting to see some of the benefits to companies that provide coaching. So for those people who say, why should we focus on the interconnectedness? Why should we help people be in better relationship with each other? Why should we focus on the team dynamics? This data is the evidence that we have.
What is the reference, Linda, for this letter?
I can share it with you.
Okay.
So before we end, I'd love to give you an opportunity to ask any questions you may have.
I have one question.
Yes.
I want to echo again. I think Yasmin is asking some really good questions in the chat, and this one intrigues me as well. So she asks, which techniques work best for you in keeping your antennae up during team coaching so that you can pick up on unsaid messages in the room?
So we have something called read the emotional field, and I'm going to give you a tip that I was given in my certification program. When do you have any soap operas in India or the countries where you belong to, like real dramatic soap operas? Do you? So switch the television on to that channel and turn the volume off. And we thrive. We thrive on soap operas. Even in Italy, we do. So good. So switch the television on, turn the volume off, and practice reading what you feel you're seeing in that is not in the verbal channel. So, oh wow, they're angry. Oh wow, oh embarrassed. Oh, it looks awkward between them. Practice reading and then get curious. So keep being curious. So when you're with a team, you can practice those skills, and you don't have to be right. You know, when you're with a team and you say, wow, it feels quite heavy here. If the team agrees, they'll say yes. If the team agrees, they'll say, no, it's not heavy. We're just thinking. Right? So as long as we are not attached as a coach, but reading the emotional field is the best skill that I can leave you with.
That's awesome.
And curiosity, of course.
There's a question by Chandraketu also. Have you encountered ego issues amongst team members, and how have you resolved it?
Of course. So it feels like the higher up you go in the organization, you've got very high IQ, low EQ. And there are reasons for that. There are reasons for that. You can't have much empathy if you're at the top of the company and you have to make some very hard decisions, right? And it's also not the truth for everybody, but we're generalizing. And so when we're coaching the team, to ask them questions which are not IQ related, but tap into the wisdom of the body or the wisdom of the heart, that is a way to shift the ego or the IQ. Right? And keep asking those powerful questions. What are you aware of? Or what's here right now? Or what's next? And it forces people to sit and drop into their heart and answer from that place. Other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. I just wanted to know that in what kind of situations do you prescribe team coaching?
Team coaching is not the solution for everything, right? So sometimes if it's a new team and they are doing, they're coming through the storming stage and they are fighting, team coaching is useful because it has them design how they want to be together in the next period. Sometimes team coaching is good when we are a great team, but we don't know what we're doing to make us great. And so we want to see ourselves so that we can replicate it. Very often mergers, like when two departments come together or when two organizations come together, that's an indication that team coaching could help. I've had amazing success with that. Obviously, when there's conflict, sometimes you're working with the team and the conflict happens in front, or sometimes you get asked to come and coach conflict. When there are, what other issues do you think would be good for team coaching?
Yeah, I would say similar to what you just said. I mean, dysfunctional productivity. I mean, like I said, 1 + 1, if it is not measuring up to 11, something is wrong somewhere. Yes. It should be far greater. The sum is far greater than the individual parts.
Yeah.
So yeah, those telltale signs.
Yeah. Sometimes when values are not being lived, we look at that. When they want to set a process for, goals. I've even used my team coaching tools and skills whilst defining strategy with organizations. It's very flexible. Team coaching isn't a standalone thing. You would use it with the issues and with whatever's happening in the organization, and it's true for the team.
I think to build awareness and reveal blind spots of the team.
Right.
To go further up, rise
Right.
higher.
Right. So there are a ton of questions, which I'm loving. I'm happy to stay behind, but I do want to honor the time of those people that have been on time and want to leave on time. I'd like to leave you with a slide, my last slide. So we have 2 books which we believe are crucial for any leader or coach or anybody that is curious about, relationship systems intelligence and coaching in a different way. And you can order them on Amazon. The one is Creating Intelligent Teams. The other one is Systems Inspired Leadership. If you are interested, please write to us and we will send you an excerpt as our appreciation to you for being on the call. And it's a booklet that will define all the 5 principles of systemic leadership or systemic coaching. My email address is on my screen, and all of our contact details are at the bottom. You could also write to info@Berlot Group. There we go. Thank you, Ziva. Okay. I want to thank you for being here. I'm happy to stay behind and answer any other questions. You've been a delightful audience. Thank you for inviting us to speak to you about a topic I'm so passionate about. Have a great evening or a good day.
Thank you, Linda. Very well conducted. Thanks a ton for sharing.
Thank you so much, Linda. And
thank you.
It was more of a conversation that I could sense on systemic team coaching rather than a webinar. So thank you so much for making it so interactive, and it was very, very insightful. I don't see any more questions in the chat, but if there are any more questions and being cognizant of the time, I will come back to you with the questions. Meanwhile, for people there is a webinar CCU. So I have put the link in the chat box. You may please copy paste the link, save it, and submit the form. So thank you so much for coming, and thank you, Linda, for doing this for us.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you for inviting us here to talk about team coaching.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sandhya.
Thank you, Linda.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you.
Thank you.